Good evening. Tonight we're talking about overcoming the fear of failure. It's a pretty hot topic. I think you have a lot of people from different backgrounds who struggle with this, different walks of life, different levels of success, and different probably levels of failure. So hopefully this will touch deep for some of you, and maybe even if you don't have this, you'll be able to help other people. Through their failures to achieve something that they're ultimately destined to achieve. There's a lot of highly successful people who have accomplished amazing things. And to them, failure was just a stepping stone to achieving that great success. And if you look at, and this is a hard statement I'm going to make, if you look at examining aspects of failure that are positive, it becomes a growing trend in today's world. Practice, increasingly celebrated by successful people, is a walk of life. We're going to talk about a few people here in the introduction, and then we're going to talk about more people as we go forward. This concept might feel absurd to you. Watching groups of highly successful people today, like Steve Jobs, who we're going to talk about in a minute, or J.K. Rowling's, or any of these, or Abraham Lincoln in the old days, it's hard to imagine focusing on failure and overcoming obstacles and making crazy choices that did not work out. So hopefully tonight we'll cover a lot of examples. There's incredible lessons we can be learned by examining other individuals, or maybe just considering your own. And hopefully in the spirit of encouragement. From me, you can re-examine some of your own failures and maybe get some potential, experiences and learning experiences and some insights tonight that will help you provide something tangible that will help you lead to a pathway to future success that maybe you're not having. So really quickly, let's look at some people in the introduction. So J.K. Rowling. It's ironic I'm choosing her because I'm not a fan. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. My family's Harry Potter people, if that's really who people are. I'm not a fan. I'm not really interested in the books, and I'm not really honestly interested in the films. But I can't overlook the fact that this woman, who was once an unemployed and very depressed single mom, who thought she would never do anything in life, became this crazy writer. She would spend nights in coffee shops, so obviously in Europe and England, scribbling out ideas about a novel about wizards, and describes herself as the biggest failure she knows. That's pretty crazy, when, like I said earlier, and a crazy bold statement for someone who's extremely successful and is continuing to write prolifically. But ultimately, it was her failure and the way she seemed to embrace it that formed the foundation of her success. And today, she's obviously a multimillionaire. Steve Jobs, 1985, the Apple discontinued. It's poorly selling. You're not even know what this is. Lisa computer. The Lisa computer. How many people have one at their house? The Lisa computer. It faced plummeting sales. Macintosh sales were just plummeting. He was ousted from the company that he started from his own garage. The decision came from their board of directors and the CEO of Apple. And Jobs himself had chosen John Scully for that position. And adding insult to injury, he lets Jobs go. So his absence from Apple, Macintosh continues to plummet and struggle against competitive people like Microsoft, like Bill Gates, and they started crowding Macintosh right out of the personal computing space. My first home computer I ever saw, I was in the Navy, was an Apple. It was in a barracks, and I could not believe I was looking at a computer sitting like that in a dorm room in the Navy. So Microsoft, this is Steve Jobs, Microsoft simply ripped off what other people did, and Apple deserved it after I left and didn't reinvent anything new. The Mac hardly improved, and it was a sitting duck, Steve Jobs says, from Microsoft. As you know, Jobs came back to Apple, and he fixed the mess, and the company, right on the verge of bankruptcy, soars and becomes one of the great innovative products. And of course, my daughter, who's not on here, chose an Apple product when she went to college versus Microsoft, which I'm using while we're doing this discussion. Michael Jordan, legendary basketball player, He was not a has been, a nothing in high school basketball. He didn't even start. He was in the second string, and he was told by his coach he wasn't tall enough to play. It made a big imprint on Michael's life. He couldn't understand how, even though he made the team, that his coach, I'm sorry, he looked at the alphabetically arranged list of his names that made up the team, and his name and wasn't there. He was so disappointed and ashamed when he wept when he got home. And his mother came by his side and gave him some important advice and said this. She said, "The best thing I can do, you can do, is prove to the coach that he made a mistake." And Michael, who added, "Leaving my disappointment behind, I started to improve my performance." Katie, who used to dance ballet at a festival here in Rhode Island, I told her the same thing when they would put her as an understudy or something else. I would always say to her, make them pay for it. Make them see you doing it better than the people they chose. And she did, and she was successful. As we know, he quickly went on to become one of the most recognizable athletes in his era for any sport, because he refused to give up and be treated as a failure, as an opportunity, but he used that as an opportunity to move forward and to be challenged. Abraham Lincoln, of course, was born into poverty. He faced defeat after defeat after defeat through his life. 8 elections. He lost 8 elections, failed in 2 businesses. He had a nervous breakdown, which left him bedridden for 6 months. That's pretty insane for the guy who became, the reconstructionist of this country. In the face of really, it was being torn apart. He quit many times, but instead he became that man. So as you already know, there are many times we have to simply accept the reality of failure. I don't have to tell you that. That's part of our where we are. This life is difficult. All human beings fail. Yet why is that hard to accept? Why is it hard to accept that we fail? I can think of 10 answers myself. I'm hoping you are thinking some now, even though we don't necessarily have as much interaction as like in this medium. I want you to really think about, why is it so hard to accept that we fail? There are so many variables in when we're trying to do something. I am a terrible domestic person at home with fixing things up. But once in a while I get something really right, and I can get good at some things that I have to do around the house. Whereas my oldest son is a dynamo and can figure everything out mechanically. But I'm sure he failed trying to do things. I'm sure he had struggles. True success is not avoiding the failure, but as we go through it, we learn from each one, and then we gain strength to do better the next time, and the next time, and the next time. And I'm sure you're getting it. No matter how many times you fail, you're eventually going to avoid that failure, and you're going to do better, and you're going to do great. C.S. Lewis once said, "Failures are finger posts on the road to achievement." I think that's amazing. That's an amazing statement. Finger posts on the road to achievement. How do you feel that? Yes, it does, Danny. Failure does bring strength. And what's funny is, we're going to talk about this. Often our failures are the biggest help to someone else's failures, and then helping them and being able to maybe having a clearer road to success than maybe we did. In his day, Babe Ruth not only set home run records for single season, but also led the league in what else? Strikeouts. Same thing for Reggie Jackson, one of the greatest postseason hitters in history. Led in home runs and also a lot of strikeouts. It's better to attempt things and fail than never to try anything, because you're afraid to fail. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Hey, Fran, we never learn from the limits of our ability until we reach the point of total failure. Thomas Edison tried over 5,000 different types of light bulb filaments. 5,000. Thomas Edison, New Jersey guy. Being a New Jersey guy, I have to mention that. Before he found that one filament that would work, his willingness to endure many failures gave us what I'm sitting here under these lights, albeit LED. Other people like Henry Ford, Winston Churchill, Emily Dickinson, Madame Curie, they all understood to make the attempt is the real failure than doing nothing. If you don't make that attempt, if you don't fail, I'm sorry, if you fail to make the attempt, that's the real failure. But if you, and it begats nothing, it produces nothing, okay? Least of all success. You have to realize that you have to overcome failure to be successful in what you're doing with your life, whatever it happens to be. Why then would someone have a fear of failure? So, consider that. Why do people have a fear of failure? Because there's a lot of reasons. I talked about last week that I have a low self-esteem, right? Right? Why? There's a lot of reasons, and that does contribute for some people and why they're afraid to fail. I, on the contrary, work harder. It's an irritation to people. I struggle harder because why? Because I'm afraid to fail. So I work harder. I read more. I strive myself to be better at my job than anybody because I want to be important. But the reality is, it's not because I really want to be important. I want to be needed, and I don't want to be a failure. So let's pray and we'll get going. God, I thank you for this time. I thank you for the purpose of being here, that we're trying to encourage people. Let these words be an encouragement. Let anything that anybody types on these screens be an encouragement and help build each other up. And I thank you for the opportunity to just hang out with people, no matter where they're sitting, from thousands of miles away to 5 miles away. Just touch each one, meet their needs. In your name we ask this, amen. So the first reason the people that have a fear of failure is not knowing what it takes to really succeed. One reason is that many of us are focused on success and appearances of it, but we forget what it really takes. It takes details, it takes time, it takes effort. We rarely even think about failure as being part of the process or part of life. All we think of is the success stories. And we never think about that many of those success stories, I already mentioned Thomas Edison, Winston Churchill, or Madame Curie, who's an amazing woman, by the way, merged from sheer failure. No one talks about how many times, like I said earlier, about Abraham Lincoln trying to get elected to office before he became president. We don't talk about Bill Gates dropping out of Harvard because becoming a sensation to the computer world. We don't talk about, as I said earlier, Michael Jordan making his high school basketball team or not making it to become, well, I'm a Will Chamberlain guy, but become arguably the greatest basketball players ever. In these times of fast media, instant news, we often think of the glamorous side of success rather than the obstacles. This is overcoming obstacles and the hard work it takes to get there. So try to start, when you're thinking about life, think about knowing what it really takes to succeed, and it'll make your life a little easier. I talked about Barry and plumbing. I'm not good at plumbing, but he'll take the time to understand the mechanics. That's what I'm talking about. Whatever you're doing, understand the mechanics of what you're trying to do. And the second thing is having an unrealistic expectation. We expect to succeed on our first attempt at any venture, and if we don't, we think we failed. And how realistic is really that? We have unrealistic expectation. I'm doing something really weird this weekend. I'm preparing for a meeting with a Spanish district under our church umbrella. Now, that Spanish district stretches from New Jersey to Maine, right? Now, we have started a deaf ministry, right? Now, you may measure the deaf ministry by how many deaf people are in the church, but I'm now measuring it as how many people can actually sign, how many people can actually interpret the signs. And we are starting to flourish. So you have to realize it's not as simple as saying, I'm just going to get to the finish line right away. If you're running a marathon, you got to get ready, right? It's not like running, I'm going to start running 23 miles tomorrow. 26 miles. I have to work my way up to that, right? Just because you failed a test or got pressed over for a promotion, or you didn't yes in asking that young man or young woman for their phone number, doesn't mean you won't succeed at it. The fear of rejection or the perceived failure stops many from trying again. That's the same thing in competitive sports. Athletes must learn to accept loss before they discover what it takes to win. In any sport, expecting to win from the onset is totally unrealistic. I'm going to use myself for example. So I played baseball my whole life. Freshman to sophomore year, I I bought a tennis racket, and I go out and start playing tennis in the summer. And I took to the sport. I didn't win a match in high school in the varsity level. I won some JV matches, but once I got to the varsity level, because I was so young at the game, and I'm a sophomore all the way out, I can't win. These people were too good. They had too good tactics and everything. But I walked onto my college team with the people that beat me, and now I was winning. So life changes things. Athletes must learn to accept loss before they discover what it takes to win. It's the same thing with life. Failure is part of the process of learning how to win. Same thing in music, same thing in entertainment, same thing in academics, same thing in business. There are very few overnight successes that you think are overnight successes. It takes years. I was thinking of Jewel for some reason last weekend. I was driving with my wife, and I was listening to it. I was coming back from New Jersey, and I was thinking of her song, and she was a kid when she sang that song. She recorded the song, but then I remember her telling me her and her father drove from Alaska to California, and they slept in their car for a long time. They sang in these folk places like coffee houses, and I mean, she had a gift. She could yodel and all that. Reality was, it took time for her to get successful. It takes time. Life is not about just handing you everything. Life is about, it's a hard world, it's a broken world, and you have to work through it. In his book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, he reported that he talks about this thing called the 10,000 hour rule. This is where he states the key to success in any field is largely a matter of practicing a specific task for a total of around 10,000 hours. That's a long time. For example, he brings up the Beatles, who performed in Hamburg, Germany over 1,200 times from 1960 to 1964, amassing 10,000 of playing time. He also points to Bill Gates. He met his 10,000 hour rule at the age of 13. He spent 10,000 hours learning programming on a high school computer that he managed to access. Needless to say, 10,000 hours of practicing anything would include many occurrences of failure, some frustration, and don't you think so, falling short of your goals. But on the other side of this, you'll see that you're going to get a realistic, because we're talking about that topic, a realistic expectation of what it takes to succeed, right? I have people come to, I just retired from youth a couple of years ago, and I always say the same thing. I'm starting to say to adults, you know what, if you just give me a month, give me 6 weeks, give me 8 weeks, it depends on the person. And I'll say to people, you know what, if you don't want to be here in 6 weeks, I'll drive you home myself. I'm asking you, I'm imploring you, don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your expectations. Strive. Put those 10,000 hours in. Put those 20,000 hours in. If you're going to fail, that's fine. You're going to get up and you're going to do it. If you're called to do it, if you're wired up to do it, I always tell people, whatever you're wired up to do, push into that. Do that. If you're interested in hairdressing, you should be doing that. Don't be an accountant. Do hairdressing. I mean, you're going to be miserable. You're not going to be good at it. You're going to be distracted. You're looking everywhere but what you're supposed to be working on. Do what you're wired to do. You were created with these great genes, right? And inside those genes is some talent, and then God pours gifts into that. Now, if you don't believe in God, I'm telling you, this is the way it works. You have natural talents. He created to do something. But if you're a believer, he's going to shower you with spiritual gifts to be successful. But it's going to take practice. It's going to take time. And I want you so much. I can't tell you. I love encouraging people. I want you to succeed. That's why I'm doing this whole thing over this is on week 4. I got a couple more weeks to go. I want you to succeed. I don't want you to fail. I want you to strive out there. Exactly, Rachel. Do what you're wired to do. You're wired. You're wired for something. Don't walk away from it. Third reason that we don't do well or are afraid of failure is perfectionism. Some of us are afraid because we don't believe because we believe we must be perfect. If we make an attempt and we fail at it, then we risk looking foolish and therefore feel somewhat or somehow flawed. Perfectionism is a joke. You know, you believe everything must be done at a high level with no room for mistakes. That's not realistic. I am telling you, one day you will do it the way you want. It will be as perfect as you can get there. and it's going to be better than not ever doing it at all. Build to that. Draw. If you're an artist, it takes time to do art. If you want to play golf, it takes time to get your game where you're actually playing with a handicap. It takes time. You have to put the time in. All right. This type of thinking deprives the perfectionist of real learning and the benefits of value gain from experience. You need to push in. You need to press in. Right. All right. So let's talk about how to overcome the fear of failure. Only by overcoming that can you achieve success in life. If you have low self-esteem, you're going to struggle through this. And that's okay. I just already told you, I do. But you need to expect some level of failure. But you have to eliminate fear and focus on what success is going to be down there. You've got to eliminate the fear. You've got to eliminate fear. I recommend 100% you need people around you that are of like thinking. Don't be going around with people that are negative. And I'm not talking about people that are being critical of you with building you up. I'm telling you negative people. People that are going to just constantly tear you down. You're not good. You're never going to be good at anything. You need to get away from those people. You need to surround yourself with people that are going to care about you. And who are those people? There's not many out there, I'm telling you, but they're there. They're right there. And you need to just sort those people out. And they're the people you want to be transparent with, and you need to have them around. So, okay, first thing, how to overcome fear of failure. Understand, expect that at times you'll fail. I know I'm repeating myself kind of. Realize you're human and humans make mistakes. Notice I didn't say fail. I said make mistakes. Before any of us learned how to walk, we crawled. We got up, we fell down, we got up again, we continued the process until what? You walk expertly. I have 5 grandchildren. I've watched them all. I've had 4 children. I've watched them. It's crazy. I'm playing street hockey on my driveway with my grandson, and my grandson sticks my other grandson. He goes down in a heap. He gets a skin knee. Well, you know what? You treat the knee. He gets up and he's back in the game. That's what life is about. George Bernard Shaw: a life spent making mistakes is not only honorable, but more useful than a life spent in doing nothing. You catch that? A life spent making mistakes is not only honorable, but more useful than a life spent in doing nothing. I know there's people around you that would sit in your stands watching you on the field and telling you what you did wrong, right? That's not a life. I don't want critics. I don't need critics. I need somebody to encourage me. I need somebody who can give me constructive advice, but I don't need critics. It's easy to criticize people. It's far harder to help them overcome why maybe they're making mistakes. There's a lot smarter people I've watched go by this. I'm watching names go by, and I have doctors that have already been up here. I don't know if they're still on. They worked hard. They worked hard. Secondly, don't take failure personally. Instead, use it as a stepping stone. Make certain you learn from it and apply what you've learned to every future situation. Consider to refuse failing a character flaw or weakness. It's not. Doing so will prevent you from achieving every future success. Zig Ziglar: remember that failure is an event, not a person. It's not you. You're not a failure. You're not a failure. You made a mistake. Maybe you were trying to create something amazing. I got a lathe in my basement that I haven't mastered yet, right? So am I going to consider myself a failure because I can't turn a piece of wood right yet? I got friends of mine that are unbelievable at making bowls out of like stumps, right? I'm not there yet. Yeah, that's right, Fran. Just as a child tries to walk. We need to realize that it's not you if you fail. That's just part of the event. That's part of the process. I just saw Rachel. I don't know if she's still on. Rachel's an amazing, by the way, photographer. I tried to promote her this week alone to somebody who lives way up north in New Hampshire. She goes, well, I'm just doing grad pictures. I said, I don't know. She may drive up here. So anyhow, what I'm saying is I'm sure she uses up a lot of, not film, but a lot of digital space trying to get the perfect lighting and the perfect, capture of her people. God is in the business of doing the same thing with you. He wants you to have the perfect capture. He wants you right in focus. He wants you to have that beautiful sunset right behind you. He wants you to be successful. But unfortunately for you, he gives you free choice. You have a free choice of doing everything. He does not put a chip in the back of your head to be successful. You're going to work at this, right? You are working at this, not anyone else. You're working at it. Thirdly, no one succeeds all the time. Probably not even most of the time. So I'm gonna put two people up here that are pretty prolific people, right? In sports, because I love sports. Baseball, we already talked about Babe Ruth. Star players like Babe Ruth fail 70% of the time. His batting average, if you don't know, was 342, which means he struck out how many times? Let's try 66%. By the way, if I'm at work right now, I work for the Air Force, and I go to work and I'm trying to produce for my customer, my functional logistic lead, and I'm not delivering at 66%, I think I'm going to be in trouble. I think I might be unemployed. Wayne Gretzky, his shooting percentage, pretty prolific scorer, by the way, 17.57%, meaning he missed 82+% of his shots. But he's famous for saying you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So Wayne Gretzky wasn't afraid of shooting and shooting and shooting. So it is in life. You won't fail at anything if you don't make the attempt. You also won't succeed in anything. Michael Jordan, again, I cannot accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I cannot accept not trying. I don't. That's what I want you to grasp. I want you to say, I can't accept not trying. I think that is a profound statement. I can't accept not trying. I want you to say that. I can't accept not trying. Michael Jordan, that's what I want you to embrace. You are amazing. You have great attributes, and realize you don't succeed all the time, but you're going to succeed. It just takes time. Number 4, remember that failure has produced many successes. And we've been talking about a lot of people in history. How many people in history failed before they became successes? Albert Einstein, wow. Albert Einstein's teacher told him to quit school because, here's a quote, Einstein, you will never amount to anything. Wow. Okay. That's I think that's pretty obvious. Beethoven's teacher said to him, as a composer, he's hopeless. Henry Ford's first two automobile companies failed. You're not, this is okay. Failure produces success. I would not say you're going to argue that Einstein, Beethoven, Ford, these people had success in their lives. I don't know how many people you drive Fords. I have driven a Ford. So this man, Henry Ford, who had companies fail, I love Beethoven. I mean, how many people think he's hopeless? It's crazy. And Einstein, they'll never amount to anything. So appreciate the benefits of failure. Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, all life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. I was amazed by this young woman. She's I don't know, she's somewhere in life, and she used to translate Spanish at our church. We had a pretty good sized Spanish speaking group that attended the church at the time, and she would run in, and then after the service was over, she was running out, and I said, what are you doing? And she was at Brown University. She was a scientist, and she had stuff in dishes that she had prepared on Friday. So she had to run to the lab to see the results of her test. She was going to go into the drug industry to help people get healthy. And I thought, judging the book by the cover, this little girl, she was so smart and so intelligent. And how many times do you think she failed? Running in to check her petri dishes, running in to look at her, how is this affecting this? Your chances of getting things right on the first try are slim to none. The more you try, the more you experiment, the better you'll get at it. Believe in yourself rather than giving up on when things don't work out. Take it as an opportunity to build perseverance and resolve. I want to see. I want you to believe. I believe in you. I want you to believe in yourself. Success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. Winston Churchill. Failure to failure. Failure to failure. You know, when he was voted in as prime minister, I think that he never thought he would, you know, succeed in anything. They consider him a warmonger. In fact, after they won the war, they tried to get him out as quickly as possible. Believe that you've got what it takes to work through the obstacles in a difficult time, and always remind yourself how many failures became successful because you didn't give up or other people didn't give up. You know, there's so many people out there around you, I'm telling you, that want to help you. They do want to help you. And I've told you this before, I think every time we're together. If you don't have somebody that can do that for you, I will. If you don't have somebody that you can be honest with, I'll keep your counsel to myself. I will have your back. I won't go talking to other people about what you shared with me, but I can tell you, I will be encouraging you to be successful, to overcome your experiments that you tried over and over again. And we will figure out what it'll take to work through the obstacles in difficult times, and you will do amazing things. You know, and not to quit, not to ever quit. You know, fear is more damaging than failure. Worrying that something might go wrong can prevent you from moving ahead. That's pretty obvious to me. We got to stop being afraid of failure and determine that we're going to succeed. That was my wife, by the way. She's awesome. Focus on your goals, not your fears. Stay on those goals. I just got to work this summer with these two amazing interns at work. Amazing. They're about to graduate from UMass Amherst. Amazing young women. They have gifts. I hope so much. I hope they always remember, and I've tried to help them, that you are amazing. And they need to focus on their goals. Look how far they've come. They're down to one semester. My daughter graduated last year in December, the same thing. Determined, stay on, move ahead with determination, push through the fear. You know, don't worry about the fear. Again, if you need people to help you through that, you need to surround yourself with people that are your fans, that are rooting for you, that would go crazy when you have success. All right, and be there on the other side, even though you maybe don't even work together anymore. Right? All your worthwhile achievements are worth taking risks. All of them. You need to take some risks. And I know that's kind of scary. That sounds rebellious. I'm not talking about rebellion. I'm talking about pushing through fear. You need to take some risks, right? You need to try it. I applied for a job at Hanscom Air Force Base. Look, I'm wearing a Navy shirt, a Navy guy. What did I know about anything Air Force? Nothing. But I felt I needed to apply for this job. You know, I needed to expand myself and be challenged, you know, and bring problems to the Air Force, as people that work with me know. I bring the Navy attitude versus the kind, gentle Air Force attitude. So God has a plan for you. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. That's the facts. Sound mind, no fear, power, and love. I love those three things. Power, love, sound mind. How many people don't want that? I do. I need it every day. I need people around me that are going to help me have a grasp of that. It's not about spirit of fear. It's about having power and having love, because people care about me and God cares about me, and having a sound mind that He's going to give me. Sound mind means I am laser focused, even if I fail. All right, next one. Fear and anxiety can paralyze your creativity and generate a confusing inner conflict. How many of you experienced that? I have. I've had that inner conflict. It's terrible. What happens is you end up with a lot of erratic and indecisive behavior. I'm afraid to even move. I can't think straight. You may not be able to function properly. You can't have that. You cannot have an erratic and indecisive mind. We're like a reed blowing in the wind. I don't know what to do. You're like a ship without a rudder. Being a Navy guy, it's important. I just watched Master and Commander a couple of weeks ago. It's a great movie. And the French come in and their ship is faster, their ship is stronger. But what do? They don't just blow the whole ship to smithereens. They shoot the rudder out. It's a matter of now I'm in trouble. I need good, clear, and decisive behavior. I can't be erratic. Paul said, be careful for nothing, meaning do nothing, but be full of care or not worry. Be careful for nothing. It just means exactly be full of care. Don't worry. Be careful for nothing. Figure everything out, right? If it takes you, before that he talked about praying for things. Pray about everything. Stop worrying, start praying. Be careful for nothing. You don't want to fall into the trap of being lackadaisical either. But if you're feeling anxious and you're feeling fearful and you're feeling paralyzed, you need to push through that. And it's a spiritual act. It's not just a single act. And by the way, where do people want to go when they're depressed? By themselves. And I mean by themselves. You also need to draw people around you that can encourage you. If you can't pray, find somebody who can pray with you. And that's somebody who doesn't judge you. That's somebody who's not critical of you, but no, they're going to come alongside you and they're going to help you push through. And how many times do you know people are anxious? They're suffering from anxiety attacks. They're suffering from all kinds of things. You need people around you. Not retreat. You don't need to retreat into a dark room and hide. You need to get with people who are going to understand you. They're going to accept you. They're going to love you. Like I talked about earlier, power and love and a sound mind. There's people that are going to help you. We're not supposed to be alone. This is not the isolation world. This is not a monastery world. We're not supposed to be alone. Okay? We're supposed to be with people. And people are supposed to help each other. You're not supposed to be alone. If you're alone, you're going to get picked off. And you're going to get worse and worse. And talk about fear and anxiety, it will paralyze you. Right? Many people never overcome their failures because they never forgive themselves for failing. Right? So we need to overcome the fact of failure. If you're not forgiving yourselves for failing, then you're going to just keep suffering. Instead of moving beyond failure to success, they continue to punish themselves with self-inflicted guilt. And if you have failed, admit it and start over. This is not about flatulating yourself with a whip, like, oh my word, I can't believe I can't figure this out. Things are hard. I've done engineering. I've done a lot of crazy things after the Navy. I'm terrible at math. I am awful. I have no gifts. But you know what? I'm not terrible at trying to figure out a success. I'm not terrible at overcoming failure. Okay? Now, I can't overcome math. I can't. I have a degree, by the way. It's in criminal justice. But by the way, I had to drop math and pick up science, which I got an A in. But I couldn't do math. So understand you need to admit that you failed and then start over. Find a way to shake it off and go forward. If it's sin, you need to get rid of that, right? God covers your sins so they don't prosper. Okay, you need to get rid of that. So if that's holding you back and you're stuck in you're stuck in alcoholism, you're doing drugs, you're sleeping around on your spouse, you're whatever. That's gonna help you fail more miserably, right? But I'm not talking about that kind of failure. I'm saying to fail is not to be a failure. You're not a failure. Everyone always fails. Because why? Because this world is messed up, and sometimes you're building something and it breaks. Sometimes you're trying to repair something and it doesn't go right the first time. Sometimes you buy a car and it's not the best car. Okay? Right? The key to success is how you handle your failure. If you try to hide it, it'll haunt you. If you bring it out in the open, you know, you conquer it. If you forgive yourself, if you think you need forgiveness for failing, and you accept God's forgiveness for other things you've done wrong, it's just let it go. It's not the end of the world. It really isn't. Accept your limitations. Some of us have failed when we think we have not recognized our limitations. You have, I mentioned this before, you have certain gifts and abilities with which to serve other people, to serve what you're called to do, to be how you're wired, and you can do everything, you know, that is within the limitations of your life, but don't accept any limitations, because believe it or not, God will help you exceed what you are. And he'll help you do more than you thought. What more than you ever could think, or more than you ever conceived, right? You can do everything in his strength, even if you didn't think possible. But while we're talking about your regular life, I don't think you should accept your limitations. Identify what you can do now, and you can do it effectively. Concentrate on your efforts on that, and stop worrying about what you can't do, right? Just because a man fails 7 times and he rises up again, that's Solomon. He fails 7 times and he rises up again. You know what? I love the saying. I've said it a million times to people. It's not how many times you fell, it's how many times you didn't get up that matters. Okay? I have fallen, I have messed up, but guess what? I got up and I kept going. And I'm telling you, I want to do that with you. I want to encourage you. Don't worry about how many times you fell. I want you to be reminded, how many times did I get up? Look over your shoulder for 5 minutes and look what you've done in your life. Look where you were if you're not where you want to be. Look where you can be if you just stop worrying about failure. And look how successful you're going to be in your maturity, in your growth. It's just the beginning. It's a process. Put that behind you and push through all that. And God is not finished with you. I'm not finished with you. And don't give up. You know, don't give up. I quote a lot. I quote some scripture some weeks, none in other weeks, and I have a lot this week for some reason, because I think it's important that somebody cares about you, even if there's no one there to care about you, but where you are. So this is something Paul wrote in a letter to some people who are struggling. He said this: being confident of this very thing, that which he begun in a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. He's starting something in you, and he will continue to do this until you go into the grave. Failure's not the end. It's just a trouble spot along the way. I like that quote earlier. It's a milestone. It's a signpost. You know what I mean? I've got to speed up. I got to take caution. I got to do a yield sign. I got something, right? We talked about this a little. We're going to cover it a little more. Overcoming your guilt and discouragement. You'll never conquer failure until you stop condemning yourself. Grace is sufficient for your mistakes. Guilt is self-judgment rising from your conscience, and it's a troubled conscience. Initially, sin does this, but I think people fail, and when they do failure, it produces guilt in their soul. And that guilt either drives you to God or it drives you away. Either drives you to people that are going to help you, or drives you away. And in your subconscious, it will erode your emotion if you stay in the guilt and discouragement area. And guilt is a major factor in psychological problems today. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but in failure, if we just dwell in the failure area, and we get bitter and we get bitter and we bitter, before you know it, you're like yelling at your spouse, you're yelling at your children, you're yelling at your parents, you're yelling at your friends, you're pushing people away, you're blame shifting, you're in denial, you're self-justification, all your defense mechanisms all come up, and the next thing you know, you're not even productive in any way in your life. And you start losing things besides just that one thing you're trying to be successful at. Guilt stimulates self-condemnation in the form of anxiety, inferiority, fear, worry, and pessimism. And we're talking about being successful. We don't want pessimism. I messed it up. Pessimism. We want we want confidence that in spite of the fact that I'm tripping up here, right, I'm going to be successful, right? And if they don't go resolved, you'll end up with like things that are camouflaging. You'll try to camouflage your weaknesses, and some of these things you'll start camouflaging them, and they'll get worse and worse, and they'll fester, and you're not going to be successful. So let's push that aside, and let's find guilt and throw it away. If you feel guilty, figure it out. If it's guilt because you're failing, you need to put that behind you. If it's guilt because you made a serious mistake, you stole from something, you did something egregious, then you need to deal with it and get it behind you. But I'm more talking about the fact that we're afraid to fail, and that's why we don't do anything. You know, it's guilt is personal, and it's subjective. You know, and I think you can deal with it the same way. You know, and I think you can get rid of that. Self-condemnation is a form of self-punishment. You know, it lets your mind torture you, and it inflicts pain on our own selves, and then you get nothing done. The longer you sit in the guilt world, you're gonna be messed up. You need a clear conscience. You need to push forward. You're not gonna be successful if you don't have a clear conscience, and you're hanging around in the guilt shed. You know, you can't. You know, I talked about God earlier. You can't do anything effective for anything, anybody, even God. You can't. It'll prevent you from doing anything successful. You won't even encourage people if you're hanging out in the guilt shed. You got to get out of there, right? You got to get out of there. D.L. Moody once said, "I've never known God to use a discouraged Christian." And I'll tell you something: discouraged people are not good at anything. They're discouraged. They just can't produce. They can't produce in the job world. They can't produce in music. They can't produce because they're discouraged. You need to get behind that. Get that behind you. And whatever you've done wrong, whatever has gone wrong, whatever might go wrong, you're going to make it right, and you're going to put it behind you, and you're going to do great things. We're not talking about the unpardonable sin here. We're talking about failure. We're talking about putting things that went wrong behind us and making it right, right? And if it involves forgiveness, you need to accept that, you know, and be restored to where you're supposed to be, you know, and not hang out again in the pity party area. You got to get out of the guilt. You got to get out of the pity party. You got to accept the fact that failure happens, and I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to overcome this, and I'm going to get back in the game. I'm going to be restored, and I'm going to restore to usefulness. I'm going to be restored to productivity, and I'm going to be restored to success, like a broken limb. If you haven't broken your bones yet, it's a long time to heal. But ironically, where that place is broken, it's stronger than it was before it's broken. Stronger. That's what failure's like. Broken bones get stronger right at the point of breaking. It's unbelievable. It's an amazing, amazing design of this body. Be like that. Be stronger. Walk upright. Walk with great success, and put failure behind you, and get out of guilt, and allow people to be around you to notice that you are a man or a woman of great character. You operate in honor, you operate with determination, and you operate looking to a successful conclusion of whatever you're working on, whether it's professional, whether it's artistic, whether it's, you know, you're gardening in your yard, you know, and whatever it is, you're going to be an overcomer, and you're going to be successful, and not worry about the fact that I'm failing. I got grass patches all over my yard. For the last couple of years, I think 3.5 years, I had a lawn service, 2 different lawn services. Guess what? They're fired. Guess who's trying to do it now? I am. But my grass didn't take. Okay. So what do I got to do now? I got to read. I got to study. I got to put lime down in the fall. I got to do all those things, right? No different. You can't give up. The grass won't grow if I give up, right? Neither will your success of your life grow unless you continue to press forward, persevere, have great integrity in doing it. And failure, again, is just a signpost. Put it behind you So yeah, I learned from that. Take a few notes and go on. So hopefully, I will see you next week. It's gonna be a mostly spiritual week next week. It's overcoming spiritual failure next week. So if you're interested in that, please come back for week 5 of overcoming the obstacle of spiritual failure. I've enjoyed this night. Hopefully you have. Yeah, I'm getting longer, by the way. Wow, 7:18. So I think you're amazing. Again, find me, instant message me. If you need encouragement, if you need somebody to hang out and talk through this with, those who know me, you know I'm here. If you don't know me very well, I am so here for you. Whether I grew up with you in New Jersey, whether I was in the Navy with you, whether I know you in some capacity here in New England, I want to be there for you. And hopefully we'll do better than we did yesterday, because I think we can. And I think we can put our failure behind us and be better and be more successful and overcome everything that besets us, because this world is just messed up. So blessings to you, and I will see you next week. All right, take care. Bye-bye.